to Biostatistics. My name is Professor Carbone, and you can find my introduction on this Instructor Resources tab. But I wanted to take a few minutes here of your time just to go over the a Blackboard course so you could see what is going on in the class, the different parts that we have, and where to look to find different resources and whatnot. So when you first log into our class here together, you'll be greeted with my lovely announcements, and as you will see over the course of this term, I will be sending a lot of announcements, just to put it mildly. And those will range from the different announcements explaining the units that we'll be going through, along with reminders and if there's any other either resources that I'd like to point your attention to, or if there are other, let's say, data tables, tutorials, anything I might have either failed to have pre-recorded or realized after the fact, hey, this is interesting. I should probably note it to all of you. But again, when you come on here, you'll be greeted with my announcements. The topmost announcement, unless I reorder this, is going to be technology resources, since this class, just like many others here at Post University, use the SAS University Edition. As such, I have the link to SAS University Edition, along with some limitations about it, the actual official documentation, and then as we go through the course and I make the tutorials for it, you'll find them listed on here, such as I currently have two up here about the basic utilization of SAS, in case you want to look into those. And I have a link to the data files for this course. Clicking on it will open up all sorts of data files that we'll be using at some point during the term. So please do bear that in mind. You will also then see my regular old announcements underneath that, just like this welcome announcement, which you will find this video in. And I hope that my announcements provide you all with plenty of information. But we're not here to talk just about my announcements, of course. And when you do go on here, the second link on this page will be this course information link. And you'll be greeted with the textbook. I would click on it. Well, actually, I will click on it just so you can see what happens. But when you click on that, it will bring you to this Vital Source Bookshelf Ambassador, and you would need to create an account if you don't already have one. If you already have one, you would need to sign in. But that's how you access our textbook for this course, in case you wanted to read more into what we'll be doing. And then there's other information here if you need a step-by-step tutorial, and then links to the bookstore if for whatever reason there's an issue. But going down from that, you could see the about the course information here. And from the course catalog, the description for our course together is that this course focuses on the connections between statistical theory and biological applications. So essentially speaking, it takes the all the aspects of statistics and applies it basically to different biological applications involving biology. There's a lot of stuff within the medical fields as well. Topics though in this course include probability distributions, which if you've taken, well, I shouldn't say if, should have taken the statistics class here at Post University, we cover a little bit into that, but this has more of an expanded set of distributions. Hypothesis testing, regression, again these topics more expanded than MAT320 statistics. Contingency tables, ANOVA, which will include both the one-way and the two-way ANOVAs, and non-parametric statistics. Throughout the course, an emphasis is placed on applying strategies to real biological data when possible, I should probably say. The outcomes for this course, we want to describe and compare data using explanatory data analysis, identify, generate, and evaluate probability distributions such as the normal distribution, the binomial distribution, and the Poisson distribution. That's definitely not one that was covered in the Statistics 1 course. Execute one-way and two-way analysis of variance, or ANOVA, to evaluate the significance of a hypothesis. Evaluate and interpret correlations. Find regression equations with and without technology, and make predictions. Collect, analyze, and draw justified conclusions using an original dataset. That would be the form of the project for this course. Write and test claims to determine changes in the population. And then execute non-parametric tests on datasets that fail normality requirements. So a whole lovely plethora of course information. You can find the syllabus here on this link down here, which I could open, but some of the same stuff that we're going over on this page is also in the syllabus, but we'll take a look at that to see if there's any differences. The course materials is that the textbook, which we have the link to file source at the top, but our book is by Triola, and Roy, Statistics for the Biological and Health Sciences, published by Pearson Education. And the evaluation for your grade for this class, 15% will be discussion boards, 25% the unit assignments and problem sets. I should probably note that only technically one assignment is considered a unit assignment. The rest will just be problem sets. The projects, note the S, projects are worth 30% of the grade. There are 2 projects, split between Unit 1 through Unit 4, and then 5 through technically 8. The tests, and then at the end of this term, there'll be a survey for you to complete, which you have seen through your various courses here at the university. There's a university policies link. I'll show you that once we get to it. There's a copyright statement here informing about the copyright law and whatnot, which you can read here on your own time. The library resources page, this is on here due to there are a couple of assignments dealing with researching different topics. So the library resources here, along with the Triog library databases, those could be used to research those different topics. The discussion board criteria, since the university has been moving to these new discussion board rubrics, you might have seen this one before, depending which classes you've taken. But the one we'll be using for this course is the 25-point rubric. This one being the active and timely participation, professional communication, response to questions, evidence of critical thinking, and course connections. But the idea of the active and timely participation is your initial post posted by the Wednesday of the week, and are your peer responses and responses to any questions posed, such as, for example, by me, are those answered, and those ones are due by the Sunday of the week. Unless the composition of our class has changed, I do not believe we'll be able to do 2 peer responses, just 1. So in that case, then definitely responding to any questions by me, unless of course that changes. If it does, I will certainly let you know. The professional communication one, that one is your response written in proper English, free of any grammatical or spelling mistakes? Did you use the APA formatting for in-text citations, and did you reference whatever pieces of from an article, a book, magazine, that type of thing. The third one is response to questions, meaning did you answer the questions in this scenario? Well, some of which contain multiple questions. Please do bear that in mind. The evidence of critical thinking, that is, the posts are written using either personal experiences or research so that classmates are motivated to continue the conversation and enhance and explore the topics being addressed. That will also include, for example, is your answer correct? That type of thing. Because sometimes during these discussion board posts, it is also helpful for your classmates to be able to point out if there appear to be any errors in the post. And then the last one is their course connections. So that meaning, is there clear evidence that the course materials were reviewed and understood? As long as you're not doing something wildly inappropriate in these discussion board posts, it is usually pretty hard to lose points in that category. You could click on this discussion board link here, which would open up not that page. I failed to click on it. It would open up this, and this just gives you a better rundown of that discussion board post and what they consider each of those topics to be. But you could feel free to review this as you see fit. The course assignments and projects. As we get through the semester, you'll be seeing more about these. But as you can see, every unit has at least one problem set inside of it. Some of them have more than one. So, like for example, you can see these projects that we were referring to before. But the important ones for the time being to note are the ones that will open up with the Unit 1 assignments, which include these two documents. So let's start with the assignment here. This is finding missing data. And you might be wondering, what on earth is the whole point in this particular assignment? And the whole point of this particular assignment is, essentially speaking, to use SAS, to become familiarized with it and use it to, in this case, find missing data. Now, I'll talk more about this when we get to the Unit 1 video and the Unit 1 content, but just be aware this is one of the first assignments. The second one, let me just close these tabs. Second one is this problem set, which again, every single unit has one of these. And there's a variety of questions, as you can see, with different point values attached to each one. And then some of them have actual data sets pre-typed, like some of these, or some of them refer to those data sets that I said you could download on my original announcement. So bear that into mind. But there's a whole variety of questions here, and then the point total, and then you'll be graded based on that type of thing. The project, let me very quickly just address that. The project, as I said, is separated into two parts. This one being the first one on it, and you'll be freely able to access this and review it for you to start looking at. But the projects can either be completed by yourself if you want, or if you want to work, I would say, with one other person. There's only two of you currently in this course, so that's a little bit negated there. So either by yourself or with each other if you want. But the idea of this, though, and this spans from Unit 1 here through Unit 4. This one here is basically for you to either find a data set if you're working by yourself, or to create your own based upon these different objectives. So, for example, if you're working by yourself, I want you to research a topic that interests you, such as something from your major perhaps, and find a data set that describes that. I want you to write at least 3 research objectives, which we'll talk about. 3 research objectives for this data set, using a variety of techniques that we are learning in this class. naturally you wouldn't necessarily be able to per se um, see all those particular techniques just yet, but we'll be getting to them in due time. I want you to make a guess on what you think would be the conclusions for each of these research questions. Identify the audience that would best benefit from your project, and then graph the data, compute summary statistics, which we will definitely be getting to, and then decide if the normal probability distribution can be applied to this data set. Why or why not? There's a whole bunch of assumptions that we'll be able to get through and utilize to see if is the is this data normally distributed or not. And then, if you are able to do so, then use the normal probability distribution to compute probabilities. On the other hand, if you wanted to work together, again, you would identify at least 3 research objectives from a topic of your choice, such as your majors, but the difference between these is now develop a survey methodology. Again, we'll be learning what that means. But what that means is come up with a bunch of questions that you want to find information about. So you need stuff like variables, and then decide what questions will give you the responses that you want. Is it like, for example, a closed question where you have a specific set of answers that they could choose from, such as a STORE survey or the end of term surveys? Or is it one of those open questions where it's basically like, tell us about your visit? Something like that. But then how would you obtain the data? Who would you ask? How are you going about doing so? Then make a guess at what you think would be the conclusions for each of your research questions based on the data that you just obtained. Identify the audience that would best benefit from your project. And then based upon this data, graph the data, summarize it, decide if the normal probability distribution can be applied, why or why not. If yes, use this normal probability distribution again to compute probabilities. So the biggest difference between these two are that individually you're finding your own data set. If you work as a group, you're making your own data set. Bear that in mind. The requirements, which again you would be able to read here as you see fit, but depending on which way that you're doing this project, and we could certainly discuss more about it later on if you would like. But for this first part here, these requirements, again, pretty much the same, unless depending on which way that you are working. But you need to identify populations and samples, clearly state all 3 research objectives along what you think the results should be, identify any relevant variables for these research questions, give a copy of your data table, or a link if it's too large, especially if it's one that you're finding on the internet. Or if it's one that you collected, you could also give a link there too, since depending on how many people you ask. Though there are requirements in that regard, but we'll get to that later on. Identify the summary statistics and graphs that are important in this case, and I gave some examples here, but I mean, that is not an exhaustive list by any means. Summarize any trends. Determine if the normal assumptions are satisfied. Which tests did you run? What results did you get? That type of thing, and then those probabilities as well. And then it's noted how you can submit your work, and then down here we have the rubric, which details how you would be graded. But you'll be able to read that in the document. And then you have the discussion boards that are available. Like on here it says ask the instructor, meaning that's any general questions that you have if they are not time sensitive. I say that because, mind you, I do try my best to see these as soon as possible, but I mean, it might just happen you might be asking when I'm in the middle of doing something, or maybe recording one of these videos. I won't be able to answer right away sometimes. So just be aware that if it's something time sensitive, you should probably email me, would be your best bet. And then the water cooler one, if you want to discuss with each other, feel free to do so in that discussion board. It's not going to be monitored by me. The syllabus. The syllabus, which I completely passed right over the course of this video, um, generates the same exact things that we saw before. I'm not going to reread through all of it, but you can see the course outline on here, which is not on the actual Blackboard page. On here, you could see the actual outline, which this first unit was going to be revolved around critical thinking and statistics. Tells you the different activities, what you should be doing for the unit. And the rest of the course is the same way. The rate work policy for this class will be on a case-by-case basis decided by me. The discussions, we've already discussed that. The academic affair policy, for you to adhere to those different policies, you can find that in the university catalog or on the college's website, but that's pretty much the same in all courses. The Meet Your Instructor tab, back on to me now. You'll find information about me on here, along with a video with me describing myself. The college success resources, this tells you different information that might be helpful. Maybe, maybe not. Depends what you're using it for. To give you an idea of what these units look like, let's look at Unit 1, shall we? Since this is what we'll be starting very shortly. It gives you an overall overview of the unit, along with any objectives, activities, any discussion boards, such as, for this case, the Unit 1 discussion board. One of the Unit 1 discussion boards, would be on the introductions. That's where you introduce yourself, such as what I did in my video on that page that I showed before. And then the readings and resources. I gave the SAS knowledge base, which is also on the first announcement. I gave different supplemental resources. Oh, I should probably note the textbook chapters are listed up here if you wanted to read them. Down here are the supplemental resources, the SAS download information, a whole bunch of supplemental videos, which will be different than my videos, and then any assignments, such as the Unit 1 assignment, which we've already discussed. You would click on this link here to upload that and see the rubric that I showed before. This one here for the Unit 1 problem set, the project which we just discussed, and, well, those answer keys down there for me, not for all of you. But that's the general spiel of what Unit 1 will be. Look out for another one of my videos discussing this actual Unit 1 for you to see that stuff. But this discussions link on here will open up to those different discussion boards, which again, for Unit 1, the only discussion board that you'll be completing, which will be due by Wednesday in the week, is this introduction discussion board, where you introduce yourself to your classmates and me, describing what degree program you're in, a personal item you'd like all of us to know about, consider the course outcomes that we've already discussed, and identify 2 personal learning goals based on those outcomes for yourself. And then you could see the other discussion boards that they will open up as we get through this course. They will not be open by the time you see this class. Do please bear that in mind. Anywho, there's a collaborate link on here, which if you ever would like a virtual collaborate session with me, this is where we would go to for that. But more on that if/when needed. You can find your grades, the Tutor Me link is on here, and so on and so forth. So that's the basic rundown of our class. Again, you'll be finding out more information about these different parts as we go through this term together. Thank you.